Welcome to the Gottesdienst crowd, where we foster confessional integrity, liturgical preservation, and preaching that doesn't stink. We believe that the historic liturgy of the divine service is more than mere cobwebs of antiquity, but it is a true treasure of the Church to be dusted off and brought down from her attic to be enjoyed. So let's get dusting.
Welcome back to the Gottesdienst crowd. This is Jason Braaten. We have back with us today Dave Petersen. Welcome back, Dave.
Thanks.
We are taking a look at the Gospel reading for the 6th Sunday of Easter. It is from John chapter 16, verses 23 to 30. LSB allows it to be expanded to 31 to 33, so I'm going to read all the way to 33, and then we can talk about whether or not it should be expanded. So John,
this is also Rogate, or the 5th Sunday after Easter, just in case anybody's listening to this and confused.
Right. Jesus said, "In that day you will ask nothing of me. Truly, truly, I say to you, whatever you ask of the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Until now you have asked nothing in my name. Ask and you will receive, that your joy may be full. I have said these things to you in figures of speech. The hour is coming when I will no longer speak to you in figures of speech, but will tell you plainly about them. In that day you will ask in my name, and I do not say to you that I will ask the Father on your behalf, for the Father himself loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I came from God. I came from the Father and have come into the world, and now I am leaving the world and going to the Father." His disciples said, "Now you are speaking plainly and not using figurative speech. Now we know that you know all things and do not need anyone to question you. This is why we believe that you came from God." Jesus answered them, "Do you not now believe? Behold, the hour is coming, indeed it has come, when you will be scattered, each to his own home, and will leave me alone. Yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me. I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world." All right, so the expansion, yes or no?
I mean, I've been trying to resist these expansions with the discipline of the, Lutheran Missal Project, but this one I feel like is needed because, so the problem is I don't think that the disciples' statement that everything's fine should be left to stand as though that's legitimate, right? I mean, they say, right, "Oh, now you're speaking plainly. Great, we got it. You don't need to talk anymore, and we're not going to ask you anymore." And I think that, Jesus' response, "Do you now believe?" And then, the prophecy of their failure that's going to come here in the next day, or actually that night already, right, is an indication that what they say is they don't understand. So if you ended it there, it feels like it would give them too much credit.
I mean, but when you're preaching on this, do you really have to include it in the reading? Couldn't you just say from the pulpit, this is what they next say?
Yeah, you could, of course. I know I'm bad. I always want to expand, but this one, I think this does add a lot of context. And I mean, I want them to hear it. It's different for them to hear it read as the Bible than for me to just paraphrase or even to read it from the pulpit, I think. Isn't it? It's experienced different by the worshiper, I think. And I want them to hear it immediately in the context, not wait till the creed and the sermon and so forth. So maybe it's absolutely fair that, of course, that is the purpose of the sermon, is to explain the reading. Yeah. And part of explaining the reading is often, context and so forth. But here I just hate to leave it alone. Mm-hmm. And also there is this, it is the end of the chapter. The chapter division comes at a reasonable place this time, right. It's the last thing he says before he launches into the prayer. So, just to stop 2 sentences short of that also just, I don't like it. I think I can defend myself for expanding this time.
So okay. So why didn't, obviously you can't read back necessarily or read the minds of the people before, but then why didn't they expand it? Like, if it is so necessary, why did our fathers before us not expand that? Could it be, I should say, that they wanted the people to hear what the disciples said and think, oh yeah, that seems reasonable, and then just come back and say, but it's not reasonable.
My suspicion is that they have a higher view of the apostles than we whatever. They thought more of the apostles than I do.
Mhm.
And I think that they're probably actually fine just leaving this confession of the disciples stand.
Mhm.
And I mean, in hindsight, I mean, eventually this is true of the apostles,
Mhm.
but I don't know. There is this particularly you see this in Luther in the Genesis lectures. I mean, his reverence for the patriarchs is, I mean, it's unreasonable. I don't think it's theologically defensible either. But I mean, he's doing it out of piety. He has such reverence for the patriarchs that he can't really imagine, Abraham passing off Sarah as his sister for any but the purest of motives. I mean, I think that's ridiculous. And I think it contradicts Luther's own kind of mode of operation and how he tells us to view the saints as, fallible sinners that receive forgiveness. But then when he talks about them, he can't see them doing any wrong, And I think that there's you see that, even in like Walther, I mean, the way that they talk about the apostles is much more reverent than the way I talk about the apostles. And I hope I'm not irreverent.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Is it that they have reverence for the apostles or that they have reverence for the fourth commandment?
Oh, either way, I think they're wrong. I think they go too far. I mean, I don't mean they're doing it from a bad motive, but I mean, I think that I don't think we should protect the apostles and their actions. I don't think they should. I don't think they protect themselves. I mean, I think Peter makes Mark write down the most embarrassing stuff. And so I think it's dangerous to protect them in a way. So, I mean, I think that of course, our danger is we treat them too casually as though they're just normal people. But I mean, they are just normal people. I mean, God has used them in great ways, but I don't, anyway, maybe I've been accused of this many times, too flippant, too casual, too familiar with these men. But I actually think, I mean, that is driven by my own piety, which is influenced completely by Luther and the way that he tells us to view the saints as completely normal people. And I think we've got good exegetical reasons, I mean, scriptural reasons to say, like in this case, they're being dumb when they say this. They're being arrogant. And actually they're avoiding the confrontation that Jesus is presenting to them. They're telling him in a kind of, semi-polite way, okay, please stop talking. We don't want to hear any more about this, right? We don't need to ask you anything. We got it. Good enough, right? And I think it's that what they do is inappropriate. And that's why he doesn't stop. And he says, do you now believe? Meaning, no, you don't. Because look what you're about to do.
I mean, do you really think it's arrogance here? I mean, this is like the culmination of these 4 chapters worth of talk from chapter 12 until now, until he just begins to pray. And they have questioned him. And along the way, like, what does he mean by this? And what does he mean by that? And now it seems like he's explained it.
Well, they don't ask him. They ask each other, right? I mean, that was the thing. They're like, he knew that they were saying among themselves, what does he mean by a little while? But none of you asks me, right? I mean, did they ask him?
Yeah, where are you going? Anything? How do we know where you're going unless you show us the way?
All right, so they do ask him some things.
Yeah, so, or is it I, or any of the other discussions that happened around the table, they are asking him stuff.
Yeah. But they certainly aren't tracking. They aren't tracking with him. They haven't really understood. And he says,
but they think they do. But I don't know that it's out of pride. Do you think?
Or is it pride, or is it just like exhaustion, or just they want to? They don't want to face it. I mean, he says, okay, 25, right? These things I have spoken to you in figurative language, but the time is coming, right, in the future when I will no longer speak to you in figurative language, but I will tell you plainly. And then they say, see, now you're doing that. I mean, he says, I will do this in the future. Now it's figurative. And they say, see, now you are speaking plainly and you're not using a figure of speech. I mean, that's the opposite of what he just said. Right?
Well, yeah, it appears to be such. Yes.
So, I mean, I think the claim is he's saying, look, I'm telling you difficult things that you can't fully understand just yet. And that's because you're going to have tribulation, but right, I'm going to overcome the world. The time's coming when your joy, all this stuff is coming, right? And they're like, hey, we get it. And right when he tells them they don't get it and that they need to wait. So maybe I'm too hard on them.
Well, I think a little bit. I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just trying to view this in terms of my own learning from people older than me. And sometimes it is from pride, but sometimes it is like, oh, I really think I see what you're talking about now. And it's only later that I realize I actually didn't. I don't know that it was from pride at that point, but I was mistaken in what I thought I understood. Does that make sense?
Fair. Either way, at least we can say they're mistaken. And their mistake is, I mean, there is a correspondence between their failure to understand from whatever it comes and their failure to be faithful in the garden and then, on Good Friday. So, because he does, I mean, he directly ties it, right? The hour is coming when you will be scattered. And this is related to your not believing, even though you say you believe.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I like the expansion. There you go.
Okay, there you go.
Why wasn't it included? I'm just guessing when I say that, our fathers thought more of I mean, I don't think I'm guessing when I say that our fathers thought more of the apostles than I do. But, I mean, I'm just guessing when that's why they're happy to leave it there and I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right.
And I probably could stand some rebukes, I've gotten people sometimes, particularly when people have complained about me, particularly at the wedding of Cana, when I say that Mary, is trying to manipulate Jesus or fails when she goes with the complaint, and they're like, that's not fair to Mary. Mm-hmm. So I've been complained I don't hold Mary in high enough regard.
Yeah. Well,
I'm okay. I'm okay with that because I don't. I'm okay with that accusation because, for lots of reasons. But
okay, so our Lord begins. Was there any translation issues?
Oh yeah, definitely context. Oh well, how about we can get into translation? Just a couple words are important, but this. So verse 23, and in that day, you have this day and hour thing. So that day you will ask me nothing. And then again, right? They're like, oh, we're not going to ask anything now. Anyway, the context for that day, I know, but I never give anyone his due. That's my right. Hard on everybody.
I've never experienced.
You felt that? Verse 22. Therefore, you now have sorrow, but I will see you again, and your heart will rejoice, and your joy no one will take from you. So that was the end of the reading 2 weeks ago, but that's the context, right? It's the day when Jesus will see them again and their hearts will rejoice and their joy no one will take from them. That's the day that they will ask him nothing. And whatever they ask the Father in his name, he will give to them. Mm-hmm. So that really brings up, like what day? Does he mean the resurrection? Does he mean Easter, his resurrection, or does he mean the last day?
Mm-hmm.
When is the day when he will see them again and their hearts will rejoice and their joy no one will take from them, because that's the day that they'll no longer ask him anything. And everything that they do ask in his name, the Father will give them.
Okay. So
I don't know.
It seems like the day of the resurrection.
You mean Easter?
Easter.
His resurrection.
His resurrection.
I think
that's the whole little while thing.
Correct. Yeah. Probably that's the whole little while thing. Though I think that's a little bit ambiguous as well, but I think you're right. I think that it's kind of both at the same time. And that's why it's figurative language, because whatever you ask, the whatever is figurative.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, because then he says, because I'm going to the Father. So those two things are held together. The little while you will not see me, and again you will see me, and because I'm going to the Father. So it seems as though there are 2 little whiles.
Yeah. And I mean, I think there's a certain sense in which this is maybe part of this is because he's speaking from the eternal perspective, and we are stuck in time. And so for him, there's a sense, I mean, not that he doesn't know that this is different for us, but there's a sense in which, this is that sort of already not yet. There's an eschatological tension that everything is complete and everything is given. And yet, everything isn't given. I mean, there are still lacks.
Okay,
There are still things lacking.
So if the little while in that hour, if that refers to Jesus' resurrection, what is the plainness of speech that comes to the apostles that is recorded for us? Is
a plainness in the resurrection, in the Easter speech, or a plainness in the last day? Which one are you asking?
I'm saying a plainness in speech when Jesus appears to them again after Jesus' own resurrection, because he says, in that day, I will speak to you plainly, but now I've used figurative speech, right? So if the little while is that they will not see him and then see him is the little while between Good Friday and Easter Sunday. On Easter Sunday, what is the plainness of speech that he gives to them regarding what he's talking about here, going to the Father and such, that makes what he said here more plainly accessible?
Then I think what it is that they no longer need any more teaching. So they don't have to ask him anything more about doctrine. And he's told them plainly about the Father, and in the resurrection, it's made clear, and they now recognize and have all of the instruction and training that they need.
Okay.
And I think that's a legitimate and right reading. I just don't think it's probably the full reading.
So if in that day refers to the resurrection of all, what is the plainness of speech versus the figurative speech that they will have?
Then what they will have is they will have no sorrow, and they will have full contentment, peace, and joy that no one takes from them, and they'll be perfectly at one with the Father without sin.
So in that sense, it's the St. Paul, now I see in a mirror, but dimly, but then I will see face to face. That type of plainness that now we have a veil, sort of, kind of, but okay.
Now we live by faith, things unseen, and then it won't be by faith in the same way. So
it will be by love.
And it'll be, and there's a boldness.
Three is love.
So I like the translation openness, maybe better than plainly. I mean, maybe that's just nuance, but so that the Father, there's nothing hidden. So the opposite of parousia is crypto, right? So the opposite of plain is hidden. But so plain, I don't know. Yeah. So openness, I think, is a better translation. Plain implies to me a kind of simplicity as opposed to complexity. And I think that actually this is the Father actually withhold the current, it's not complexity that makes it unplain at this point, but it's actually the Father hiding that there are things hidden from us. And that, so anyway, I don't know if that helps or if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, this is the word used for like the freedom of speech in the ancient Athens, right? So that you mean like openness in that sense, that they can speak freely and not in riddles.
Right. Or not, what I mean in our day, not in politically correct speech.
Okay.
This is speech without fear, right? Boldness. So we stand before God according to this parousia. We are both known and we know, and we don't have to, right? We're not hiding anything, and we're not nervous about how this will be perceived. Well, I mean, won't that be a joy?
But why is our Lord concerned about that?
He's not. Go ahead.
Is it does this go back to that Isaiah passage, and when he gives in Luke the reason that he speaks in parables, to hide these things from those who think they understand when they don't?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. And that, right now, our duty is to live by faith.
Mm-hmm.
And it has not been given to us to have perfect and full knowledge of all things.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is what it is. To be a man is to live by faith, and the time will come when faith, right, won't just be things unseen. So, this has to do with, right, I mean, this is the whole revelation. I mean, this isn't the word apocalypse here. This isn't the word for revealing or uncovering, but it's related, that the time's going to come when it's going to be uncovered, and there's going to be this full intimacy. That's the other thing. It's a kind of, I think, openness has an implication of intimacy and honesty, trust, right? There's the weird thing that sort of there is a kind of trust that Christ has in the apostles, despite what he knows about them, which I think is a really interesting, right? Why? I mean, it's a strange honor that he bestows upon fallible men to preach the gospel and to take on this work and to trust them to do it. Not that he's naive about how good they'll be at it, but I mean, you could say, of course, what he really trusts is the Spirit to enable him to do this. But he has a confidence in them to carry this out. He honors them. He includes them, and there's an openness there.
Okay. So,
I mean, I don't think it was a good idea. I have some ideas about how he could have done it more reasonably, but. I mean, doesn't it seem like, right? Why doesn't this seem like a good job for the angels? I mean, they're messengers. Why don't you let them preach the gospel? Then, it seems like it would go a lot better. It's amazing that, right? Of course, it's because of the dominion that is given to Adam in the beginning.
That's exactly what it is.
I mean, I know why it is in a way. I don't, but I mean, there is a certain sense in which it's like, why? You could just do, or for that matter, he could just do it himself.
Yeah, no, but this is the curse. So it's not. So the undoing of the curse is enduring the curse.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you go out and have dominion by the word of God, which is what you should have done in the beginning, and you will eat by the sweat of your brow, and you'll have all these weeds and thistles and nonsense to deal with, and so go. Get after it.
Well, there's also a kind of, I think, we just sort of want to slink away from our duty and pretend like, whatever. It's just too hard, too impossible. We're too weak. Even John the Baptist. See here, I'll even disparage poor John, right? When he says that, he doesn't want to baptize Jesus. That's inappropriate. Mm-hmm. He doesn't want to carry out his office.
Yeah.
And Jesus is gentle with him, but he does say, right, does he say it is necessary, or does he say it's good? I can't remember now. For us to fulfill all righteousness. It
is necessary.
Exesitin, right? It is necessary, not callous. So, I mean, there is this not optional, right? John is, according to his old man, that is creating doubt in him, and he's shrinking back from his vocation. And Jesus doesn't let him do it. And Jesus doesn't let us do it either. And, there is a kind of real, he calls us to a manliness, right? To in the best sense of the word, whether we're male or female, to actually be true humans, true men, and to do our jobs, even though we don't do them perfectly. So it's like your father isn't going to say, look, I told you how to mow the lawn. You did a crappy job. You can't do it anymore. You're too stupid to do it. Your dad says, no, you're going to learn how to do this, and you're going to keep doing it. And, it isn't what it should be. It will get there. And, in the meantime, it's going to sort of be good enough, and we're going to endure it. Mm-hmm. And I think there's the word that comes to me, and I've already said it, but it's an honor that he includes us in this work, that he gives us a part in this kingdom. And
so is this the idea that, when we get up, we should recognize that everything that we do and all that we are is coram Deo, is before God, period.
Yeah.
And that we should entrust or hand over the work of our hands to his blessing, but do it with an eye towards that we are doing it in his presence.
Yeah. And as sons, right? Not as slaves.
Yeah.
So, the son there's part of the son at least that wants to mow the lawn and that wants to try again and that wants to please the father and is not terrified, right, of punishment or of the father's displeasure.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't want to disappoint the father, but he's not in doubt. He's not like, well, last time I did this and I didn't do it as I missed a part or I left a pile of grass somewhere. I made a mistake. I did something wrong. And whether it's because of laziness or ignorance or whatever, and I don't want to do that again. But I'm not like, I'm afraid that my father's going to hate me because of this, or he's going to kill me, or he's going to torture me, or I'm not just trying to avoid punishment. I proceed with optimism because my father is also encouraging me. Yeah. So last time I didn't do it as well as I should have. And he pointed it out and that sucked and I didn't like it. And maybe there were consequences. Maybe I had to redo it. Maybe I had to pay for the gas. But I'm still coming at this again with renewed zeal because in that rebuke, there was encouragement. Mm-hmm. He didn't say, you can't do this. You're not capable. You're an idiot.
Yeah.
He said, you're better than this. And here's how you're supposed to do it. Remember, and let's do it again. And there's an encouragement and an honor there.
Yeah, there's something that just happened to me recently. My oldest boys, they played baseball, and now my youngest boy is playing baseball. And I know that this happened with my oldest boys, but I just only recognized it this year when my youngest was playing, that after everything he did, he would look at me to see what my response was. After every hit, every swing, every throw, every grounder, every catch, everything, his first look was not to his coach but to me. Was I smiling? Was I in approval? And it just hit me wow, this is what we've forgotten to do with our Father in heaven. We've learned not to do that.
Right.
And we need to learn it again. To look for his approval in all these things. And I mean, my kids were well aware that they were doing all of this in my view, in my presence.
Well, I think we should, I like that. I think maybe I'd modify that and say, we should learn to look to God expecting approval.
Mm-hmm.
Your kid hits the ball and he looks at you. He's looking at you because he expects and wants to see you smiling, cheering. Right. Mm-hmm. He's not like, I don't know if he's going to like this. The ball's not going to go far enough. That's not right. He totally expects your approval. Right.
I don't know.
Poor kid. Yeah. You thought I was hard on people.
Well, I mean, if he's done better, I will tell him that, this was fine, but you can get more consistent if you do this, and remember. But
sometimes he does it right. Sometimes he does it well, and he knows, and he feels.
Yeah, sure. Yes,
so
there are those times, but I'm saying in all things, he's always looking. Whether he did it well or not, he doesn't care what the crowd is doing.
Right.
If they're cheering, he wants to know what I think. That's my point.
I still think he expects you to be approving. He expects you to be approving of the effort.
He expects me to tell him what is true and best. That's what I think.
Yeah.
Whether what he did was right or wrong, he knows that I'm going to be straight with him.
Okay. He expects goodness. Let's say
he expects goodness. I will agree to that.
He expects goodness. He's not fearful of wickedness or abuse or punishment even.
Yeah, no. So, anyway.
Well, it's a good illustration. I think by the way, the best illustrations are always with children. Those are the best because it's the most that is the language that is most dominant in Scripture of what it is to be a Christian. Is the most dominant language is familial, and the most dominant amongst that is that of we're the children of God. So those are the when we can see how the pattern, and the other thing is we've all been children. So yeah.
And in some ways still are.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So this is all wrapped up together in terms of the day of his resurrection and then the day of his return.
So I wonder if day, so I wonder if day it means something, because he changes then, right, to hour. From day, it goes from day, in that day, you will ask in my name, we get again. But then it changes in verse 31, right? The hour is coming. And there was another, where's the other place? I thought there was another place where there was hour.
Well, it was in the previous one, wasn't it? The previous.
Oh, maybe that's where I'm. But I wonder if, that's what it is. You're right. Yeah. So you have the hour laid earlier and then day.
So do you think there's a distinction between the hour, which is that of suffering, and then the day is that of rejoicing?
Well, that's what I think hour, right? His hour is his glorification on the cross. And I think hour is deliberate from day because, it's shorter. I mean, and
really?
Yeah, sorry, that was so profound. But I think that there is a distinction, that the hour of glorification, the hour of crucifixion is short, and the idea of the day being eternal. So
is he?
They don't.
When he's talking about a little while, and he's talking about the suffering or the sorrow, the lipe, is he trying to say that this is passing away, that this is transitory?
I think maybe, I don't know, but I wonder if that's a deliberate, distinction, because it's in that day that you will ask in my name, right? And it's in that day that these things will happen. But your scattering, that's just an hour. My crucifixion, that's just an hour. Your tribulation and sorrow, that's an hour.
Mm-hmm. So, okay. So what are they asking of him? Just doctrinal questions, or are they asking about when will you establish the kingdom? All of that sort of thing. Maybe that's still a doctrinal question.
I know now. It's interesting. I think so. He uses this word for ask, aiteo, which I don't know. These words. So some of the dictionaries say that this usually means asking for information, so asking questions. Whereas eratao, which he switches to in verse 26, I can't remember how the ESV translated it. So the New King James has, in that day you will ask in my name, aiteo, and I do not say to you that I shall pray the Father for you. That's eratao.
So that's a request type thing.
Yeah, that's like a request for something, as opposed as request for information. Not always, but I mean, so the words are closely related. I don't know if we can. So if ask for information, in that day you will ask me nothing, that might mean doctrinal information. And like so maybe he's saying, look, in the resurrection, finally this will all be clear. You've had your seminary training, out you go. You know what you need to know. And you can write the Bible and perform miracles and found the church. But then, I don't know, that's a possibility. I don't know if I could be that narrow. I think overall this is really just generic language for prayer. That day you'll ask me nothing means we'll have no lack, whether of knowledge or of material goods or of, right?
Yeah, in the
whatever.
Gospels, sometimes this aiteo is used for beggars.
Which they're not asking for information.
No.
So,
but maybe it's you're not going to be beggars.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a distinction in
the
type of person. Like, so you're not going to be a beggar to God, asking in that you are begging, but that you have a different standing, and so you're going to erotao, which maybe relates to a full citizen. A full citizen has parousia. A full citizen has the ability to erotao, not to beg.
Though in 23, it's still the second time. It's also aitao. Whatever you ask the Father in my name, he will give you.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I mean, so it's still using the
that.
begging
Never mind.
language. Yeah, and so he uses. I don't know. I think maybe I don't think we should get too caught up in. I think it probably is. So is it asking about doctrinal questions? I think it's probably all of it. It's just what we ask in prayer. Reveal yourself to me, reveal your love to me, strengthen my faith, give me enough to eat, make my beloved love me. I mean, all the things that we need, right?
Well,
which
so
again,
it's the disciples. It's the disciples who are using erotao. So maybe they have sensed that to go along with your hating on the disciples. They have this sense of, we have a different standing, so we don't need to question you, because we have, the same standing now. And he's saying, no, you will always, in this sense, be beggars of God. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, I don't know. It could, yeah. I mean, it bugs me too when they say,
because it's poo-pooing the disciples.
I think it's outrageous when they say, so, I mean, now we are sure that you know all things. Okay, that's good. And we have no need that anyone should question you. As though the only purpose of their questions was to determine whether or not he knew all things. Right? I mean, that's right. What do you mean you have no need? I mean, they have a lot of need, again, because they're about to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And so that back to that arrogant idea, maybe. Anyway, I think this is probably just, I think we rightly would apply these passages as a promise for prayer.
Okay.
That we have access to the Father through the Son, and this promise that he hears and answers our prayers.
Mm-hmm. And
what about your joy may be full? Huh?
And so we have access to the Father through the Son in the Spirit, because the Paraclete is coming. He's being given to us.
That's true. Yeah, and there has been a bunch of Paraclete talk just before this.
Mm-hmm.
And tribulation is coming. So, all right, we talked about the speaking plainly. And again, you get into this verse 26, right? You will ask in my name, I shall not say that I shall pray the Father for you. The Father himself loves you. Oh, here's kind of a fun, that John uses phileo here for love. The Father himself phileos you, and you have phileoed me, or because you have phileoed me, right? So he uses John doesn't use agape here.
Yeah.
That kind of goes with your beggar language, or your kind of beggar idea.
Yeah.
Or slave versus son idea.
Yeah. Because he's saying he's not going to erotao the Father on our behalf, but we will be able to aiteo the Father.
Yeah.
So, I mean, is this like he's, in a sense, is he putting them in their place, and then they still don't get that he's putting them in their place, so he has to restate it, say, do you now believe? Behold, the hour is coming, indeed it has come, when you will be scattered each to his own home.
See how easy it is for me to corrupt you to my disparaging of the apostles.
I don't think it's from pride. I think it's from misunderstanding.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all pride and for Aquinas.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's all rooted and right, but yeah. Anyway, I was just going to check this. Yeah. Where does he say aiteo after he changes to erotao? He uses erotao to describe his own. He's not going to erotao the Father.
Yeah. So he says, in that day, I will erotao. You will erotao nothing of me. Truly, I say to you, whatever you.
They say, okay.
Aiteo the Father in my name, he will give it to you. Until now, you have aiteoed nothing in my name. Aiteo, and you will receive, that your joy may be full.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he says, in that day, you will aiteo in my name, and I do not say that I will erotao the Father on your back.
Right. Okay. And then they use, we have no need that anyone should erotao you.
Yeah, we don't need to
because we believe that you are God, that you have come from God.
Mm-hmm.
And then Yeah. So I was thinking maybe he said aitao again in that second, but he doesn't.
Mm-mm. No, not in that part. Not in the
Yeah.
the
That's fine.
the pieces left off in the.
Right.
Oh, he doesn't say it in the
He
expansion.
just talks about he says, do you now believe? But indeed the hour is coming and has come that you will be scattered. Leave me alone.
So
And then these things are spoken.
is what Jesus saying erotaoing them? So no, I'm gonna ask you things, and you're gonna need to aiteo the Father on my behalf.
What's he asking them to stay with him? To stay awake in the garden?
To make confession, to
be faithful.
Yeah.
And they don't.
You change
so
that
they
around.
Don't.
This is what he's asking us. And because he's asking this of us, we need to ask the Father in his name.
Oh, I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah. Something is asked of them, and their response should be to pray.
And then he then demonstrates
which is
what to do.
This is what he tells them in the garden then when they fall asleep. Pray, lest you fall into temptation. So, I mean, here's what I'm asking you to do. Stay awake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how are you going to stay awake? You've got to ask. You've got to ask for help to stay awake.
Yeah.
So,
which means once
good.
You're asking, you've got to also listen.
Yeah, right.
So it does go back to the word.
And it would require humility to do that, which would mean the problem.
Oh, I hope you asked me to preach your funeral. No, I'm just kidding. Oh, goodness.
Okay. Yeah, of course it's this, kind of Johannine circular convoluted thing too, which is hilarious. I just love that he tells them he's speaking in figurative language, and then they say, "Oh, now you're not speaking in figurative language."
I know
it's hilarious. It really is hilarious, and I mean, certainly nobody's going to say, right, when Jesus asked the question, "Do you now believe?" Right, the answer to that question is no. Right, I mean, it is when they say, "By this we believe that you came forth from God." Oh, do you now believe? Well, you're about to you're about to fail.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's interesting too. And yet, of course, but then in that same, even though, there's that rebuke, but then in that same thing, right? This is again in the expansion, 31 to 33. I have spoken to you that in me you may have peace, right? In the world you will have tribulation, but right, have courage. Yeah. I have conquered the world. So there is this, right? Even though there's a rebuke here, there is also this promise.
Yeah.
And this recognition that, look, you think you understand, you don't, but I've still spoken words that have power and that will bring peace and will bring comfort in tribulation when you need it. And, you're going to fail and leave me alone, but I'm not alone. And I think by implication, I'm not going to leave you alone.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I've spoken to you, right? So there is this, I mean, and I love this, have courage language too. So you've got a promise of joy, of peace, of courage, and of love in this.
And of victory.
They do. And victory. Yeah. I mean, they do. He does say, even though, right. Do you now believe? And the answer is no, but not all the way no. And he has said that you love me.
Yeah.
Which is high praise, right? The Father loves you because you have loved me and have believed that I came forth from God.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, he does acknowledge their faith while rebuking their faith, and he acknowledges their love while rebuking their failure to be steadfast.
Mm-hmm.
It is a remarkably paternal, like back to your kind of baseball example.
Yeah.
Right. You did this good. You did this well. You could have done better here.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think they expect both of those things.
I think that's fair.
The honesty of where there's improvement. I think they actually want it too. They want the improvement.
I like this. I hadn't thought of this when I was preparing for this, but I like this kind of paternal. I like this. He says both. You believe, but you don't believe. Right? You love, but you don't love.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of like, well, you hit the ball, but you also took your eye off the ball.
Yeah. So you
looked to me for approval, but you also looked at that girl.
So So Jesus is asking them then to believe and love more.
Yeah, I think that's well said, right? It's not that they don't have any faith; they're not unbelievers.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe Peter will be, and Thomas obviously is at some point. But I mean, they're yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe that's the thing. Well, if you go to the rest of John, you have this is what Jesus asks: stop being faithless, but believing.
Yeah. And then to Peter at the end, do you love me?
Yeah, feed my sheep, love.
Yeah.
I don't know.
There you go. Those are good connections. Good connection to the Garden of Gethsemane, which follows immediately, and then to the resurrection and then the end. Yeah.
So your love, and this is not just generic belief and generic love or generic staying awake. It's associated with certain things to do. So you stay awake by asking the Father, right? By prayer. You are not being faithless by believing in the words that have been spoken. You are loving by tending and feeding to the sheep in your care. So it's not as though it's just like an abstract, stay awake, believe, and love. But in other words, there are actual activities to do that go along with it.
Yeah. And they're mostly activities of language, right? Of speaking, right? Praying is speaking, confessing is speaking, listening and speaking. Mm-hmm. I mean, so there is kind of a connection there too, I think, in what they're in the, even as he is open with them, they are to be open. Their faith isn't secret, hidden under a bushel, that stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So what are you going to preach on?
Well, I didn't break this down into the normal topical things, but I really like this. I think I wrote down here this kind of paternal character of this speech, to see sort of both rebuke and encouragement, praise and also warnings. I mean, there's this really, in a way, I don't think I've ever conceived of these passages before as being so paternal in the best sense of the word, right?
So is there a sense in which then the disciples are already kind of seeing their direct speech to the Father in this way by Jesus speaking this way?
Yeah, yeah, right. I mean, when they say, okay, so, right, see, you are speaking plainly using no figure of speech. I mean, again, like you were saying, I mean, they're sort of half right. I mean, they don't say something utterly ridiculous. It sounds kind of ridiculous, but I mean, there is a sense in which, they do believe that he has come forth from God. They are certain that he knows all things. They might be, I still think they might be a little bit arrogant in thinking that they don't need to ask him anything else. But, it's maybe arrogant like the kid that thinks he's going to hit a home run.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they have a little bit unrealistic and, inexperienced expectation of what they're capable of. Mm-hmm. But, it's not the confidence is not completely misplaced.
Is it,
right?
Is it the difference between pride and bombast or something like that? Or do you not see, that you have this great confidence in something or an ability. I wouldn't say that's the hubris. Sometimes it can be.
Right.
I'm thinking like, a child's understanding of that. They believe what others have told them, and then they take it to 11.
Well, I mean, we don't want to. I mean, right? I mean, there is an appropriate optimistic confidence,
right?
Yeah. I mean, you need to have some I mean, right? If you're never gonna. I mean, you'll never hit the ball if you talk yourself out of it. I mean, you got to believe it's possible and believe you're going to do it and envision it and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, sticking with your baseball thing, right? So I think we would make a distinction between pride and confidence, even if the confidence is naive.
Yeah.
And I don't think we would necessarily, I don't know that we would discourage it completely. We might want to sort of we might want to kind of control the expectations a little bit, but at the same time, we wouldn't want to squash it.
Yeah.
Right. The
So
kid
maybe that's what we
the
see
kid
having here is that
Yeah.
there is a right kind of confidence that they have,
Yeah.
but it's, and he doesn't want to squash it, but he wants to make it more realistic. Like,
Yeah.
The best players in baseball, only hit the ball 3 times out of 10 at bats.
Right. Right.
So your expectation should be realistic in this regard. You're capable of it, but it's not going to be like you do it every time.
Right. And, there's a certain, swing for the fences. There's a kind of danger in that as well.
Sure.
Sometimes, maybe, part of this is, look, I know you want to hit a home run, of course. That's what we want you to do too. But maybe, swinging as hard as you can isn't the right tactic, when the bases are loaded and, there's a time to just get a run rather than be the hero.
Yeah.
And so maybe this is sort of like, look, I know you want to hit a grand slam, but we just need a run. So let's do what's good and what's right and what's more obtainable and be realistic. I mean, maybe that's part of the kind of lowering of expectations without squashing the confidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or not just lowering expectations, but looking at
context.
Yeah, this is what we need. And so
this is what we need. And we don't want to squash your confidence, but you want to hit a grand slam. That's not just confidence. That's pride.
Okay. All right.
Maybe that's part of it. There's a mix here, and of course, it is. Look, we've been there, right? You trust me. I want to hit the grand slam, right?
Oh yeah.
So, you get up there. There is a real temptation in that moment to not do the best thing for the team or even for the win, but to want the glory. So
yeah,
that's a good illustration, I think.
Yeah. And so, and in that sense, is that what our Lord is doing is remember that you're working for a team under the captain. You're not Lone Rangers.
Yeah.
So this is not about you. It's about the Father.
Yeah.
And even what I'm all about is about the Father.
Right. Yeah.
So he's giving them his own example to say, this isn't about glorifying me. This is about glorifying the Father. And in glorifying the Father, Jesus is glorified.
Right. I'm not going to tell you plainly about myself.
Yeah. But
I'm going to tell you plainly about the Father.
But if you seek also to glorify the Father, lo and behold, you also will be glorified. So are we asking then that we would always remember that we're on a team?
Boy, that really has the potential to go very flaky.
Yeah, it does. You know what I'm saying?
I do, though. No, I think that's right, though. It is right because we do need that reminder and recognition, right? That we live in community, love your neighbor. All this stuff. This is absolutely right and a part of it. So
yeah, okay.
And there's where your joy is full, by the way. So bring it full circle. How is your joy full? Right, your joy is never full when it's alone.
Yeah.
Right, your fullness of joy is only possible as a community reality.
Yeah,
there's no singular joy.
Or when the Father is with you.
Yeah, well, which is community, right?
Yeah, but receiving the praise from the Father, not from men.
Yeah. What I would say, I think, though, the greater joy, the full joy, is to receive the praise from the Father with your teammates. So there you go. Yep. Right,
that could get real flaky.
There's no I in Jesus. So
except in Greek.
That's right. Well, I don't know. There's a lot that could be done there. The baseball thing could get out of hand, but you could do it could be done well.
I don't know that I'd want to preach on that.
A baseball sermon.
Yeah. But I could see myself making the reference in Bible class. I don't know if I could do it from the pulpit. I could. But it's just
a little bit. I think you could do it once. You could do one thing. You could you could talk about the son looking to the father in the stands for approval.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think if you tried to make this an extended metaphor and keep talking about it,
Yeah,
it would be very flaky. And I mean, people might like it, but you shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, that gets it's distracting. And then it becomes just too much about the metaphor and how clever it is. And it distracts from the actual point you're trying to make. So
is there a sense in which our Lord is saying, if you ask of the Father, you also will not be alone because he will be with you, because he's listening to you?
Yeah, I mean, maybe. And look at my example. You're going to leave me, but I'm not alone.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the Father, you're not alone either, even if you have these tribulations. And even if, these other things happen.
Okay. All right. Anything that you wanted to get to that we didn't?
No, I didn't have a big list. Sorry.
It's all right. All right. Well, we'll pick up again with Exaudi, the 7th Sunday of Easter, next time.
Depending on how you count.
Yeah, or the 6th Sunday after Easter.
Right. Or I think it's actually, isn't it called, it's actually the Sunday after Ascension.
Yeah.
I think that's Okay. Thank you.